Well, hey, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dad, and we are going to get back on this S10 street strip truck, just kind of a fun weekend, go out, drag race it, go take it, go get ice cream, whatever you want to do truck. We have made immense progress on this rig since the day we got it on our very first S10 drag truck build episode, and you can see where we took this $125 everyday running great 87,000 mile 2.8 liter 5-speed S10, and we just completely gutted it down to nothing, and we have what we have today. I'm going to take you on a quick tour to show you what we've gotten done so far, and I'm going to explain to you what we're going to do next, because it may have a little tip or trick you might want to do in your project, something that will expand your creativity, and I promise anybody can do it. This blue, what a popular color in the 90s for the S10. If you haven't seen at least 30 of these S10s in this color in one day in the mid-90s, then you just weren't living, or you just weren't paying attention. But it does seem like about half of every S10 ever made was this color blue. Now this truck was repainted, from what I can tell, just once in its lifetime. And I wouldn't say that they did a great job, but they did use a paint that is tough as nails because it doesn't even like the sand very good, which is honestly a good thing because this truck needs such little body work. All we're going to have to really do is scuff this up before we prime it and get it ready for the next coat of what we're trying to achieve, which is a modern day patina. Now what I'm going to do here is nothing new. They've been doing it for a long time, and really custom and creative painters have really taken it to the next level on how realistic their paint jobs are of a old rusted out car. Now I'm not achieving a rusted out look on this truck, but I do want to go a two-tone without going two-tone. So the idea behind this is to, let's get this fender, these front fenders, let's get this cab sanded, get whatever little body work or whatever little filler we need to add in here and there, let's get that knocked out. And then what we're going to do is a two-stage, basically like a patina, where we're going to paint pretty much the top half of the truck all the way down here to the door, probably about this trim molding. We're going to paint this with a base coat of RC blue. This ain't going to be the single stage since this is going to be base coat clear coat, but it's going to be the same color blue as the frame, the whole top all the way down to this line. And then we're going to let that cure, and then we're going to go over top of that with black, with a dark pigment, a very dark pigment black, and we're going to let that whole thing cure. And then I'm going to show you what we do to start bringing that blue through that black in areas where we want it. We will control the patina and what is showing and what we want to be visible. And so for now, we need to get on sanding and creating a giant mess in this garage that I just cleaned up. Well, since we have clearly surpassed the point of no return, let's just get into it making a dog mess. This isn't nothing more than a little orbital sander that I picked up from Harbor Freight for probably, who knows, I don't know, $30, $40, probably less than that. This is a hook and loop, just has a little piece of 80 grit sandpaper on it. We're just gonna start scuffing this up. I wanna get this polished blue off, and I want everything to be scuffed up and hazy looking, and wherever we have these little chips like this, we're just gonna go ahead and flatten those down, but we're gonna fan out that flatten. We don't wanna flatten it down real quick, because remember, everything from down here below is generally gonna be gloss black. So it is gonna show all your dips and waves, so we wanna be a little bit mindful of how far we go digging, even if it does require us going in here and putting a little bit of dolphin glaze just to fill some of those little creases. So here we go. when you would take a crayon, like an old crayon, and you would sharpen it, all the little shavings that comes off of it. It kind of smells like that. I don't know what kind of paint that is. It definitely acts like some sort of a lacquer-based paint or some sort. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to get some PPE on and get the rest of this sanded down, and we'll see you in a bit. Now, we're making pretty fast progress on this truck, especially with the use of that power tool. But one thing that I forgot that I did was a bonehead move. It was probably maybe like 3-4 episodes ago, or 5, I don't know, or something like that. But whenever I went to remove the cab from this, from the chassis, the way I had it rigged with the cherry picker and the straps, I wasn't too bright whenever I decided to go around the bottoms of these doors with the straps and all the rigging and whatnot, and I actually bent the doors. Just kind of creased them on this bottom lip. Now, it's totally repairable, but it's really disappointing when you went all this time and you're really diving into the body side of it and you remember what a stupid thing that you did. So go back to that video, watch that, comment, say you're an idiot, and just make sure you don't do the same thing. So I went ahead and fast forwarded past all of the sanding so you didn't have to stay there and watch the hours of boring sanding and fixing all the little imperfections. You kind of catch the drift of what has to happen there of smoothing everything out. Now, I didn't go just absolutely perfect on this truck because it's not going to be a SEMA truck. This is going to be very, very nice. I'll know where the little imperfections are. Most people won't notice. But when I say I fast forwarded about 3 months. That's how long I have been away from this project. Yes, in this one clip, we went from starting on it to just now getting back into it. And the reason why is because me and my family had a brand new baby boy number 3, Barrett Joshua Sammons, and we're thrilled to have him with us now. And forgive me, there's been allergies going around and my voice is just kind of all over the place. But now that we're back working on this thing, I did get all the sanding done. I did a final cleanup and I got everything masked off and we're now ready for primer. So I'm going to take you around it and just kind of show you what I did. Now, some of this may look a little barbaric, but I do save all the old bed sheets and towels and blankets, all the stuff that's going to naturally get thrown in the trash because it's perfect for this kind of stuff. Yes, it contains dust, but when you go to do your final paint job and you're laying color or you're laying clear, if you're the kind of person that likes to wet the floor just to keep the dust down, well, you don't have to be shy. You can wet that stuff too. That way you don't have to worry about blowing dust off of it whenever you go spraying nearby it. But firewall, if you remember, we'd already had that in a single stage prism paint, as well as the inside of the cab has already been painted, and underneath the cab was already painted. And I can tell you right now that this truck is just as beautiful underneath it as it is going to be on the top. With that slick black paint job along the bottom, that new oil pan, like all the new stuff on the LS motor, that transmission painted that orange. But basically what I'm trying to do, I do have the inside of this barricaded. Hear that roll, my little roll of tape there. The reason I have this tape, this little roll, is because I didn't take the door latches out. I am going to replace them, but they're not missing right now. And I just stick that there because I do not want the door to latch. But inside of the door is going to get painted. Inside of that, or the actual door itself, I say the door frame is going to get painted. Inside the door is going to get painted. And you can see where we had some filler on the bottom where we pulled those dents out. And same on the back. You know, I didn't really realize this in the past, but I did put a little filler in there to just kind of smooth out an area. But this must be just common with S10s, especially maybe this first gen body style. But this whole panel through here, now mind you, the bed comes up to here, and you got to remember too, nobody in the past, even when buying a new one of these, was really nitpicking, but this thing waves all the way down through there. And I fixed the worst spots right here in the middle. I didn't even take all of it out so it wouldn't look so odd, but I just left that. That's part of this rig, and we're just going to leave it that way. Now, I was going to consider actually hanging the front fenders on the truck and just painting this all at one time, but I found masking was going to be more than what I wanted to get into. The fenders were already off, so I just set up a little workbench. The inside of the fender is already painted, and I got everything masked off except for that radius. I'm going to go ahead and hit that. Whatever I get on that's going to be okay. But we're just going to go ahead and paint everything right here, and then when we're done, before we get into the cutting and buffing, we'll hang the fenders back on the truck. But for now, I got my primer mixed up. You guys know how I do. This is the Napa Acme brand. This is the finish one. This is just a standard 2K high build primer. All right. And then this is the hardener that goes with that. If you're wanting to buy some, this is the FP415, and it does require the FH416. So those go hand in hand. Got my mixing cup, my filter ready. So we're going to go ahead and get this mixed. I don't think that I'm going to need more than one full cup on this. So that's just where we're going to start. Now that we have our primer mixed up, for the paint gun choice, I chose to use my Nico. This is a cheap gun I got off Amazon, I think for 60 bucks, but I got this because it had a 2.0 tip. And I got this with a 2.0 tip because the primary use for this was for basically like that sprayable filler. We used that on the Galaxy project several videos back. If you care to go back and watch that. Now that was a full restoration process, but this gun does really good for that stuff. Would you ever spray base coat, clear coat through it? I wouldn't, especially not with a 2.0 tip. Even if it was smaller, the gun's pretty crude, not gonna lie. But for this kind of stuff, it works great. If you drop it and break it or whatever the case, actually I dropped it once. If you probably can't see on the video, but the, the cup is actually bent on it. But that's gonna be our flavor for this evening. And we're gonna just go ahead and get this thing filled up. And this primer was a little bit old. I did have to use a little bit of lacquer to thin it out a little bit. But we're only going to go about 3/4 of a cup since this is not a disposable cup. Yeah, I know. Got to do some cleaning on this one. And I'm missing the little vent thing too, so don't get too far over center. So we finally have hit the mark to where we can actually start spraying some color. This is a wonderful feeling for most painters or builders or whatever you're trying to accomplish, because this is a sense of accomplishment. It took a lot of work to get here. Now this truck, I mentioned this before, but this is not SEMA. This is gonna be really, really nice, but it's not gonna be perfect. I just didn't, look, no matter how much you put into it, it's still an S10. It's only gonna be worth so much at the end of the day. Not saying that we're not going to do a nice job on it. We are, but we're just not really aiming for, we're so scared that we don't want to even take it out of the garage because we're afraid it's going to get scratched. We want it nice, but that's where we're going to leave it. But fenders are all sanded. Now you're going to see this looks a little streaky because I did go through after we primered it, went ahead and sanded it with a kind of a fine grit sandpaper. I had a little bit of dry spray on the roof, so I had to take care of that. And so we went ahead and cleaned it all up. I'm going to do one more pass with Prep-All, wax and grease remover. It's a critical step anytime you're going to spray color or when you go back to even spraying some clear. But I'm going to switch to the no lint cloth now. The initial cleanup, I use just regular standard cloths, and they just, they lint everywhere, but you're throwing a lot of that stuff away to get the bulk of the residue off of the panels. So now we're switching to no lint cloth. That way we can try to minimize the amount of lint and dust and stuff that we're having. Now we're in a garage that's already dirty from the projects and just garage doors open, and so I don't have an expectation that I'm not going to have junk get into the paint. It's going to happen, but that's okay. We're going to cut and buff it anyway, but let's get on the ball and get some blue on this first. So you can see I barely have next to nothing on that rag just because I've already done this about 15,675 times. But that's okay, we'll do it one more. Maybe it won't look good at all. That's always a possibility. But this is also part of
learning. Learn what works, learn what doesn't work. Make mistakes, understand your mistakes, understand how to correct them, and the next time, don't do it again. Good thing about the base coat, you can kind of make as much as you want. If you don't use it all, you can always put it right back into the can because it doesn't have any hardener in it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a full cup. And I'm going to reduce this a little bit. I'm curious for you out there doing this kind of stuff in your garages. What are you using for heat in your garage? Way back when, I did wire this to eventually put one of those mini split systems in here, but I never did. Kind of glad that I haven't because of the overspray and trying to keep everything clean. I mean, I got everything, man, everything that matters to me. You get it all covered up with towels, old blankets, and stuff like that. I got just a window unit for air conditioning. It seems to do fine. It's a little undersized for the size of the garage here. But for heat, I got one of those Duraflame 5-brick gas burners. And I'll tell you what, this is a 24 by 24 garage. And you could easily get away with the smaller one, the 3-brick burner. And maybe if your garage isn't insulated, this garage, I packed this thing tight with insulation. That is an awesome color. I'm glad Asher picked it. Behind this door right here, that's going upstairs. I built this closet here because I needed the support for the staircase, but that's also my compressor room where I have a dual stage cobalt compressor in there. And it works great because it keeps it quiet in there. Not that compressor is really loud, but what I do when I go to paint, I have my traditional air hose reel for just working on stuff, even though everything's battery powered. But here's my normal air hose reel. But when I go to paint, I always make sure that I drain the air tank in my air compressor. But I also have this desiccant dryer. It's one of the larger ones for sure. It's a little expensive, and there's tons of different ways to air dry or to dry the air for your paint. But you got to remember, you're at home, you're in your garage. What's practical for cost? This does pretty good for me. As long as I drain everything pre-hand and the filter is good in this, which this is a new one, I don't have any problems with water. And then from there, of course, is my air line that goes out to my gun, and I go to spray wherever I need to. Now, I don't like to have a big bulky regulator and everything on the bottom of my gun, so I always adjust my air pressure here at the regulator. That's what I do. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it gets it done. All right, blue is complete. This is the first step of our process. I've got pretty much 2 full wet coats on this, and I think it's plenty enough coverage. I went a little heavier on the areas where I know we're going to be sanding through the black to bring that blue back out. So that's pretty much top of the fenders, top of the doors, right through here. Basically anywhere where the sun would be beating right down. Top of the roof's going to be a little thicker than what we normally do, but that just gives us a little buffer in case we get a little overzealous when we get to sanding. But I got 2 cups of the black mixed up now, so everything's clean, wiped back down with Prep-All and ready to shoot. So let's just get after this and get this thing painted black now. Y'all, I got Asher out here in the garage, and he's giving me a hand today. And you can see the black turned out great. We're not leaving it this way. So the next step is we're going to start exposing the blue up through the black. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Now, you guys have been following this truck, so you know that this was a color that we were really set on. And you've seen that we've already painted the cab blue, and then we went over it with black. Well, this was our grand scheme. And maybe it's not for everybody, but we just wanted to do something a little bit different. Now you can see where we kind of cut through a little bit too far on some of
Trying
that.
to make it like it's real and the sun hit it. The black thing would.
What was that again?
We're trying to make it where the sun kind of like is fake, but trying to make it where kind of where the sun hit it and make it where the black dissolved.
Yep, just kind of a natural patina.
And up here, make it kind of where it got a little further deep into the paint and primer.
Yeah, we got a lot more smoothing out to do. But like he was saying, well, don't fall off of that thing. But basically what he's saying, what our grand goal is we like the look of patina cars, even the rusty ones. We're not opposed to that at all. But this is a rust-free truck. There ain't a drop of rust on this thing. But we still wanted to have a little flavor to it, not just a solid blue or a solid black. And we wanted it to look like that this thing sat in an Arizona sun for 30 years and just it was cooking the paint right out through the underneath the base coat. And we're kind of getting there. There's some areas that definitely need to be touched up by hand. That's going to be with a little sand and block. It's a slow process if you try to do this by hand. That's why power tool. I'm not mad at all that I'm going to have to touch up a couple spots, because if I had to dig all that out by hand, we wouldn't have this thing ready to clear coat for July. Now, clear coat, if you're wondering, you're probably thinking you did all of that base coat and you're supposed to clear that pretty quickly right after you get done base coat, after it flashes. That is true, but there is a product called Intercoat, which we will spray that on. When this is all done and it's wrapped up and it's clean and we've wiped it about 30,000 times, then we will spray an Intercoat on it and we will let that tack, and then we will go on it with a clear coat. And that will then allow the new clear coat to bond to what's going to be now the old base coat that we put on there. So you can have large gaps in your time between base coat, clear coat, but there is a process to do it the right way. So I'm just going to give you a little sample of what I'm doing here. I think you guys get the drift of it. And this is by no means a professional anything. This is just a garage. We're just playing. We're going to wet the surface. Use our little sander here. And we're just going to go over it lightly, just until we start exposing the blue. And stay away from your edges. I'm putting next to no pressure on this sander whatsoever. And even then it can still bite you sometimes. Stop it there, have a look and see what we got. Then you can see the blues coming through there pretty nice. There's going to be a little gap in this footage, but I'm going to go ahead and finish all of this truck. We already have everything done on the passenger side. We have the whole driver's side and both front fenders. So to save you a whole lot of time, just remember, it's a lot easier using the sander on the big flat areas, but stay away from the edges. And when you get close to those edges and you need to fine tune the edges, that's when you're going to have to break out the old elbow grease and a sanding block. Just take your time and be careful. Now I will go through a couple of these little spots that I sanded through with an airbrush, and I can just ever so slightly just those little spots to cover them up. I don't actually mind the look of some of the primer coming through because that actually looks pretty old too. So some of it we might leave. I don't know. We'll have to play with that as we go along. But it's definitely taken a whole new attitude, and we're so excited to see what this thing's going to look like cleaned up and under clear coat. All right, after all of that sanding, a lot of elbow grease, but that's okay because we have finally achieved the results that we were looking for. Now, I will make an admission that
I knew with an orbital sander that I was going to end up sanding a little too far and digging into the primer. I did go on the passenger side of the truck with the airbrush, and I did fix all those spots, and I mean, completely erased them to where it was just black and blue. But after I started doing the driver's side, I started digging into the primer again a little bit, and I started snapping some pictures of it, and I started asking several different people. Both of my kids, or two of the three, the third one is only a few months old. He doesn't really have much of a vote. But my parents, the people that I work with, everybody agreed, and this wasn't, I had a difference of opinion. I thought it looked better without the primer spots, but they liked it better with the primer spots because it added an extra color, even though it's primer gray, but it also definitely enhanced that old, bleed through look a little bit more than just the solid black and blue. So we didn't get crazy with the burn through. We're not down to metal anywhere. It's just the primer. But tell me what you think. And if everything checks out, which I already went around this thing with wax and grease remover, we're going to have to do it again. We're going to have to rinse out the floor in here in the garage. But tell me what you think. You like it better with or without the primer? I'll get you in for a closer look. Now this is the driver's door. And you can see where it just kind of faded, not faded, just kind of sanded into it, a little bit into the primer. And it's starting to grow on me. I went a little further on the A-pillar, just kind of giving it almost gives it a little textured look to it. Not crazy amounts of it on the roof. And honestly, on the back of the cab here, I got a few pieces bleeding through. We'll change the light. And I didn't really worry about it here because the bed kind of comes up a little high on these. So fenders, same way. Get that light glare out of there. A little bit on the corners. But I kind of don't mind it. This fender came out with a little bit more. One thing I like about doing custom stuff like this is it's okay to have some pretty wild inconsistencies because, that's what makes it custom, right? And I fully understand that this may not be for everybody, what I'm trying to do, but at the same time, this is a 91 S10. This isn't a 67 Chevelle. Bag over there that's got all of our filters. We'll clear coat. We are definitely going to ventilate this garage. You've seen whenever I did the paint how much of a plume gets in this garage, and that's okay to an extent. I should have ventilated that too, but I didn't. I was lazy. I'll admit it. But clear coat, that stuff is a different animal. It will choke you up. And I had a respirator on, and I need to go get a new one, don't we? Because it's all plugged up. I'm out of filters for it, and it's just time for a new one. All right, we are back. We had to wait another, I don't know. I've been trying to clear this thing for 2 weeks and just keep getting sidetracked with this, that, and whatsoever. And then the other day, what was it? Just last weekend, we attempted to get out here to clear coat to find out what, Ash?
We got the hardener.
We didn't have enough hardener. I had all the clear, and I thought I had the hardener because I had tons of little bottles of this stuff, but only one tiny little half bottle was the actual right hardener. So we had to wait even longer. So we are all prepped and ready to go. Now we do have the truck wax and greased removed for probably the 50th time or so. We got everything cleaned up. I'm going to pan you around here just to kind of show you what I do in this garage to prep for when I'm doing the clear. If I'm doing a little small paint jobs and stuff, I don't really worry about going crazy on ventilation. But since we are going to be throwing a ton of clear coat in the air, ventilation is going to be pretty important. I picked up a new respirator. So I'm going to need your guys' help to get all these filters stretched out and get everything rigged up. Our clear coat is mixed and ready to go. So as soon as we're done with this, we're going to get to spraying. Ready?
Yep.
So I'm dealing with kind of limited space here, so I'm going to try to give you a rundown of my filter setup, which isn't nothing. You knucklehead. Which isn't nothing but just a bunch of furnace filters. Now, I did take these, since this is a 24-foot garage, this is a 16-foot wide garage door. So I did take several of them, and I don't want to get dust on my panels, but I kind of zip tied them together. So all these are stacked up like an accordion, so I can just stretch them from one side of the garage door to the other, secure them with a few clamps, put a couple fans in front of them, open up one of the regular windows to let positive fresh air in. And then from there, we're going to get to spraying, and we'll be able to stand a chance on breathing. So very generic overall, but you get the picture. We got complete filtration on the outside. My fan, I just That's a pretty powerful DeWalt fan, and just the fan alone keeps the filter stuck to it. Now this window over here, I will open it up, put this box fan in it, and get positive flow going this way. And then from there, you'll be surprised actually at how well it ventilates. And, you know, we just do your best when you got a garage and not a paint booth. So let's get the other fan set up in that window. Our paint's mixed up. I am going to be using the DeVilbiss for the clear coat. I was overall happy with the Kiwami on the base coat, but this DeVilbiss, honestly, it lays it so wide. The Kiwami just has kind of a narrow spray pattern, and I would be very confident in that gun to tell you guys that would be the best beginner gun there is, especially for the price of a couple $100. But I'm a little reluctant to do it on large panels, so only for that reason. It sprays really good and it sprays very smooth, but the fan, you imagine the way it sprays out like that. My DeVilbiss has a max of like 18 inches, and that one is, I don't even know what the specs are, but it's probably 10 to 12. And that does make a big difference when you're talking about overlapping. And I wouldn't use it on metallics, and I don't think I'd use it on clear too much, but the DeVilbiss for the win gets it done. Let's get spraying. If you're wondering why I have this blue bandana on, I'm just trying to keep the paint out of my hair. We're going to go ahead and run this in through our air dryer. Now my paint gun has a regulator on it, but I'm going to set this regulator to 60. We're going to probably only see about 38 PSI to the cap on the gun, so I'll know that I won't be over-regulating it too much or over-pressuring it. All right, now that we're ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and start on the inside of the door jambs. And there you have it. This thing came out slicker than deer guts on a doorknob. The blue that's fading through that black was a wonderful contrast against that same RC blue colored frame. This kind of, when you get into custom stuff, it's kind of like a Bob Ross painting, you know? It kind of, you just got to keep your eyes on the end goal. And I think that we've achieved that. Now, custom stuff isn't for everybody. There's going to be a lot of people that don't really care for this style, this kind of look. There's going to be a lot of people that love it, but that's the best part about custom stuff. And when you're doing stuff like this, it's really hard to mess it up. So I encourage you, just get out there and try. You know, find yourself an old fender, do some body work, learn how to smooth it out, beat it out, get you some body hammers, and just kind of play around with it. And don't be afraid, because this is entirely achievable in just a regular garage like this. But I am thrilled with the way that this came out. Now, if you are wondering, well, there's not a bed on it, there's not a hood on it. You're right, there isn't. We didn't even paint those. Actually, I have to paint the cowl that goes above the windshield wipers. I still have to paint that, the front grille, and all that other stuff like that. But I'm just trying to get this to a point to where we can start reassembling. The bed is going to take a lot of work, and I just want to get as much done as I can before we need the bed. And then there's going to have to be a lot of modifications on the hood as well to get it to even shut with this 5.3 sitting in there. So we're going to push that down the road a little bit, but stay tuned for the next video, because we are going to start attacking the coolant system, and I'm going to show you right now what we got for that. The next project coming up is going to be taking the core support out of this truck. There's only a couple bolts holding it in there, but we need to take it out, and we got to modify it for this radiator. Now, you're going to see a lot of S10, LS conversion radiators. But one thing they have in common is basically it's just a standard C4 Corvette radiator. Now you can go try to get an OE radiator for a C4 Corvette, and that'll work just fine. Dimension-wise, it's the same. But if you want to go new like I did, I got this one off Amazon. It's fully aluminum, but what's nice about it is it has the shroud and it already has the cooling fans built into it. So we're going to have to modify that core support. There's going to be some welding, there's going to be some cutting, but we got to make it right. We got to make it nice so we can get the core support painted and get everything pretty much bolted down. So stay tuned for that. And also, the last thing, I think we're going to do 2 upgrades in the next video, and one's going to be the radiator install, and the other one's going to be is taking some of that flat steel, and we're going to go ahead and make our drive shaft hoop. And we got the bed off. That's one of the modifications that we can do along with the fuel lines and the air ride lines and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that, and appreciate you following along. I still encourage you, get out there, get you a paint gun, start practicing. You're going to mess up a lot of stuff when you get started, but that's okay, because you're going to get better at it, and then you're going to look back on your first projects and you're going to laugh at yourself. But I appreciate every one of you. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do it. Help us out. We're slowly creeping up on that 1,000 subscribers mark, which for a lot of people that's nothing, but for us it's kind of a big deal. And my son Asher, if you haven't seen yet too, he has one YouTube channel that he started called Asher's Wild Outdoors. So if you feel up to it, we'd appreciate you going over there and kind of liking and subscribing some of the stuff that he's into. He's got a lot more content coming as well. So until next time, we'll see you later.